What up, you guys? We are here for our Saturday night secret sermon. This is the Secret Teachings of Jesus segment where we delve into the Gnostic Gospels. We are in the Nag Hammadi scriptures. These are the scrolls found in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. And we are in the Gospel of Philip currently. And yeah, I just was like really curious and interested in reading the Lost Gospels, and I wasn't sure when I'd have time to do it or if I'd really devote myself to it. So I decided it would be fun to make this a weekly segment that we could all share together. So that's how this came about. And so far, I think it's been really great. I've had so much fun doing it, and people seem to really love it. And I think this might be a lot of people's favorite episode of the week. We have like daily scheduled content kind of structure, and our Saturday night sermon is Secret Teachings of Jesus. So let's get into it, shall we? I usually just come in from work and I will turn into the gospel that we are working on. So before we did the secret book of James, and that was more linear and like dialogue driven. The Gospel of Philip we've been skipping around because there's these like separate individual like small portions of text. Each are their own morsel, their own idea, and they're very cryptic and esoteric. And so you're meant to just like meditate on the imagery and let that settle and meditate on it and mull over it, and it reveals its meaning to you over time, unless you understand it right away. You know, some of this is like coded language that makes more sense if you have some background in knowing like code from Torah, and if you also know, like if you're familiar with the Zohar, which is the mystical interpretation of the Old Testament, that helps because a lot of this is coded language. But if not, I still think that the essence of it can come through. So, all right. Well, so tonight's portion is going to be Joseph the Carpenter. And so in the Gospel of Philip, I've just been like kind of coming in, opening it up and seeing if a passage kind of stands out to me. And if a passage kind of starts immediately giving me downloads, then I'll just go ahead and choose that one. Sometimes we have weeks that are connected back to back that like kind of build on one another. I think that for several weeks in a row, it's been very like, I don't know, they've all kind of fit together. This one feels a little bit like on its own, but I think that all the things that we've been talking about, we will lay the foundations for us to understand this passage. So let's get into it. I'll read it a couple of times, just really badly, poorly, horribly, and it'll get better as we go, and then I'll unpack it line for line and give you the downloads that I'm getting as we're going. All right, let's do it. Joseph the Carpenter. Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. He is the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. So let's read that again. Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. He is the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. Okay, let's read that one more time to see if I could be less choppy. I had a migraine all night at work. It came in right as the shift started. So I've been like a little bit like brain damaged all night. So a little extra choppy. Okay, Joseph the carpenter. Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. He is the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. Now, Philip, the apostle, is talking here, and he is making reference of Joseph, who raised Jesus. Now, I don't know this from like studying actual scripture, but it seems like on the series, The Chosen, it seems as though like the apostles and the disciples, or sorry, the disciples are the apostles, but like the original OG disciples, like it didn't seem like Mary was like really like all out in the open and like super public about the fact that like Jesus was like, she was impregnated by the light, like by a miracle, and through a messenger, like through an angel. So I don't like, she wasn't like talking about how Jesus was like conceived a lot, I don't think. I think maybe that was something that she talked about later when they were ready to start writing the Gospels, but maybe like I don't know if the disciples like knew that whole part about Jesus. Like, I think maybe Jesus revealed like his Messiah status and like the things around that needed to be talked about for people to understand what's going on. But I don't know like how much detail they knew in the early parts of like Jesus coming out and like, you know, spreading the word, the message. So I also think that too, in this portion, Philip is sort of like using Joseph the carpenter to like build a parable or like a story or symbolism, like a metaphor for people to understand. So Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. Now here we have garden, and there's a footnote. The literal meaning of the garden is let's see, a paradise. So like the Garden of Eden, right? It's a reference to the garden, which was our perfected, whole, unified state with the Creator. So Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. Now, if Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, if Joseph the carpenter planted a paradise, what is a paradise? A place of bliss, a place of rest, a place of fulfillment, a place of abundance, a place of sustenance, wholeness, unity, right? So if Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, so Joseph would have been the earthly representation of the Father of Christ, right? Of the Father of Jesus, like our earthly example of the Father in heaven. So Joseph the carpenter planted a garden. He planted his paradise, for he needed wood for his trade. So the Father of the Christ, like the bringer, the sharer of the light that reveals Christ into the world, into our consciousness, planted a garden. So this is the part of us all, or Joseph is the example here, of planting a garden, of doing what we need to do, of doing the tilling, of toiling, of clearing the ground and planting seeds and nurturing those seeds to become plants and growing that into like things that fruit and grow back and you know, become more. So this is like the work that we do to bring bliss to our mind and our consciousness and our soul and our heart. And so this is our effort to achieve Christ consciousness. Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. So it's like the effort that we make to grow and develop paradise, bliss, to develop our soul and our consciousness, the effort that we make there gives us the tools and the materials and the resources for our soul's purpose, for the unfolding of our soul's potential in this world, in this material world. So the preparation that we do to condition and elevate our consciousness and to like bring our soul into balance and do our tikkun healing, that gives us the resources and the ability and the fruits of the spirit, if you will, the toolbox, the toolkit, to be able to start bringing forth the light in this world and to develop our soul and to express our soul and to express our soul's purpose and potential, and maybe even, you know, our gifts that we give to the world and our talents and things like that. So living in alignment with our soul's potential and revealing our soul's potential and living in that higher destiny is like using the wood from the garden that we built. So Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. So it's like we need the tools to be able to fulfill our purpose in this world, right? We need to go through certain challenges, and we need to embrace being able to look directly at our darkness and own it and be like, okay, this is the worst parts of me, so I can heal that and bring it to light and reveal it, and that part of me doesn't control me, right? And then we develop the parts of our soul that are in alignment with the light of the Creator and are an expression of love and creation and sharing. We develop those more. And it's those aspects of the soul that we bring to light that help develop us so that we can start awakening into that Christ consciousness and integrating that and living in it, right? And using that in our work, in the ways that we move and live and have our being in this material world, how we relate to other, how we share with the world, what we're giving back, what we, do we, hold our light up, or do we hide it under a bushel basket? Each of us were given gifts and talents and a unique perspective through our particular set of experiences in life. And so it's up to us to take that lead and shape it and alchemize it into gold, right? Our experience. What have we learned from this life? Like, how can we use that to share and help others? How have we become more compassionate, more understanding, more empathic and intuitive and insightful, more sharing, right? How has that made us more like the light? So he is the one who made the cross from the trees he planted. And again, it's like through the effort, through those seeds you're planting, the seeds of faith, the seeds of belief, the seeds of understanding, right? The seeds of going into the Torah and the Bible and the scriptures and like delving into that and mining it for all the truth and the wisdom and the insight, but also the way it like changes you and changes your soul, right? So it's like he's the one who made the cross from the trees he planted. Well, what is the cross? It's the means by which we self-sacrifice. And so when we heal our soul and when we elevate our consciousness, that means that we become more like Christ, we sacrifice ourselves. We sacrifice our ego, that shadow self, that dark side, the selfish part of the self that, wants to receive for the self alone. The part of the self that wants to receive, instant gratification, the part that the Satan loves to like pull the strings, So we self-sacrifice and we take that to the cross. When we are Christians, that's what we do. It's not just like a one and done deal. It's like what we do is we pick up the cross and we walk the stations of the cross and we lay our soul down to be cleansed through dying and being resurrected in a new consciousness in an elevated state, more like our spirit, more connected with our spirit, united with our spirit. So Philip the Apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. He is the one who made the cross from the trees he planted. So again, it's like you make the means by which you self-sacrifice is the efforts that you make to learn from life's troubles and experiences and your pain and your failures and your sorrows and your wins, all of it. You use the things that you have in your experience to build that sense of paradise, because those are the things that help break you. They break open your heart. They break down your willpower. Break down your ego. They break down your soul, and they break you open. So it's all of those seeds that you plant, that garden that you plant, and all the things that grow from that, from being present with your experience and learning from it and letting it move you and change you, and then letting that relationship or that understanding of Christ and Christ consciousness and becoming more like that, let that shape you and change you. That's what's taking what we've planted in the garden to make the cross with it. So he's the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. And it's like our offspring are the children. It's like what we've been able to give birth to in our lives, like what we've accomplished, what has been fruitful and successful. Have we been able to accomplish turning our anger into peace, turning grudge into bond, into friendship, into love, right? Have we been able to give birth to new insight and new ideas and new revelation and breakthrough? Have we grown our soul in this lifetime? So that would be the offspring. His offspring, so he's the one who made the cross from the trees he planted. And his own offspring hung on what he planted. So again, it's like the effort that we make is literally what we are hanging our own achievements on, right? We put that on the cross as well and continue to sacrifice the self and to sacrifice the smaller personality and to sacrifice the ego and, to even give up anything that we have attachment to. Anything physical, anything of our being, of our attachment. It's like we will give up that to be one with the Creator, right? In the prayer of the poor at night, how does it go? It's like, I'm willing to give everything, my spiritual and physical, to be one with the Creator. And that's what it's saying here. It's like he's the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. I am willing to give everything and anything, my spiritual and physical, to be one with the Creator. So as we become more like Christ, as we let the lower self die on the cross, then that is what helps us become more like the divine, more like our spirit, more like the Creator. And in order to become one with the Creator, we must become like the Creator. In order to share affinity with the light and be in resonance, we have to become like the light, right? So we are willing to give anything that is asked of us or from us, right? Spiritual or physical, to be one with the Creator. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. So God sent his son Jesus to be the sacrifice that was hung on the cross, to be the metaphysical and literal sacrifice that opened up the gateways and the consciousness. And it was the most powerful sacrifice, but it opened up the upper realms for our souls to awaken higher than they could have had he not. So he paid the ultimate price. And He's the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. So even like Joseph, the offspring was Jesus, right? It was the born Messiah, the end of pain and suffering, the Christ consciousness. When we awaken to that Christ consciousness, that brings the end of pain and suffering within ourselves, because we transcend it. It's not that it necessarily stops, but it's like it doesn't have a grip or a hold on us anymore. And so his offspring, the fruits of the self-sacrifice, the efforts, the planting of the seeds, the spiritual work, the soul work, the tilling of the ground, of the heart, the offspring of that, everything he grew was the Christ within himself and and without, but like that, the Messiah, right? Messiah energy, the end of pain and suffering in the world, in his world, in his consciousness. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. And so the cross not only is the tool or the medium by which the Christ is crucified, but it's also an intersection of vertical connection to God and our connection to Source and the heavenly realms and the upper realms. And then the horizontal plane is the heart being open and shared and extended into humanity. So it's like the light is coming down through and then broken open in the heart and spread out in love through mankind. So it's bringing down the light and then sharing that light outward. The human experience, the material experience, the connection to the heavenly, the upper realms, if that makes sense. So let's read this through again now that we've taken everything into account. Joseph the carpenter. Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. He is the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. So yes, again, the idea of self-sacrifice, of sacrificing what is the most precious to us, whether that is ourselves or what we create or the good works that we've done or our good intentions, whatever it is. It's that self-sacrifice that elevates us, that awakens us, that makes us more like Christ, that bears the Christ, that brings Christ into fruition. Joseph the carpenter, one last time. Philip the apostle said, Joseph the carpenter planted a garden, for he needed wood for his trade. He is the one who made the cross from the trees he planted, and his own offspring hung on what he planted. His offspring was Jesus, and what he planted was the cross. All right, y'all. I hope you have a good rest of your middle of the night, Saturday night, early Sunday morning. Have a nice Sunday morning. Have a nice Sunday afternoon, or whenever you're watching this. Much love to you. Shalom, shalom. And we will be back tomorrow or whenever you're watching this, we will be back. The next episode will be Sunday night. We will be doing our weekly energy oracle forecast where we take a look at the week ahead and see what kind of spiritual weather we will be living in. All right, y'all. Ciao. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, then please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications to be notified of when I drop content. Like the videos, comment, share them. Anything that you do helps these messages get out to other people who need them. So you watching a video and taking an action on it actually makes a positive difference in someone else's life.